Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Think about your day for a second. You tap your phone to pay for coffee. Maybe you send money instantly to a friend, log into your bank app. You know, trillions of these digital transactions are happening every single day all over the world, super fast. It feels pretty seamless, right? Almost invisible sometimes. But behind all that convenience, there's this incredibly sophisticated, high-stakes battle going on constantly. It's the fight against financial fraud, and honestly, it's something that touches all of us one way or another. So today we're doing a deep dive into these kind of hidden systems and processes that are working, relentlessly to keep those digital transactions safe. Our source material for this dive, it comes from FinCrime Intelligence. That's a platform focused squarely on understanding and tackling financial crime. And our topic, fraud detection. We really want to frame this not just as some technical back-end thing, but as a truly crucial layer safeguarding our financial lives. So our mission is to dig into this material.
We want to understand what fraud detection actually is, how it works, what techniques they're using. Some are pretty cutting edge, the tough challenges the industry faces, and its vital role in the bigger picture of fighting financial crime.
Yeah, and understanding this whole process is probably, well, way more relevant to you than you might think at first glance. It's like this invisible shield, protecting your bank account, making those instant payments convenient and possible, and really upholding the integrity of the financial systems you count on every day. When it works right, you don't even notice it.
Right.
But when it fails, that's when the real problems can start.
Okay, so let's jump right in then. Based on the FinCrime intelligence stuff, how do they actually define fraud detection? And what's the core mechanism? How does it work?
Well, essentially, the definition is pretty straightforward. It's the process of identifying activities or transactions that are potentially fraudulent within financial systems.
Hmm.
And the fundamental way it operates, it's all about constant, vigilant data analysis. It's looking at transaction patterns, behavioral indicators, basically trying to spot anomalies.
Anomalies, so things that stick out.
Exactly. Things that significantly deviate from what's considered normal or expected behavior for, say, a specific user or an account. These anomalies, they're the crucial red flags. They could signal all sorts of things, maybe unauthorized access to an account, someone trying to misuse an identity, maybe tampering with a transaction, or fraudsters actively trying to get around the security controls. What the material really stresses is that speed and accuracy in spotting these things, they're not just nice to haves.
Hmm.
They are absolutely critical. You need them to limit the financial loss and maybe even more importantly, stop the fraud from escalating once it's detected.
Okay, so it's spotting the not normal stuff super fast. Makes sense given how quick digital money moves.
Yeah.
How do they actually do that? The material mentions different techniques and approaches.
Right. Yeah. It highlights two main paths, essentially. On one side, you've got the more, let's say, traditional rule-based systems.
Right.
And on the other, you have the more advanced detection solutions.
Let's start with the traditional ones, the rule-based systems. What are they and what are the pros and cons?
Sure. So these systems rely on predefined logic. You basically set rules like, okay, automatically flag any transaction over, say, $10,000.
Right.
Or alert us if a login attempt comes from a country the user's never been associated with before.
Mhm.
And they are pretty effective for catching fraud patterns that are, well, already known and understood, things we've seen before. However, the material points out some pretty big limitations. They often generate a lot of false positives.
Flagging good transactions.
Exactly, which means they flag legitimate activity, inconvenience customers, that sort of thing. And crucially, they really struggle with new or evolving fraud tactics because, well, those tactics don't fit the existing rules.
Which feels like you're always playing catch up, right?
Yeah.
The fraudsters change methods. Your old rules are kind of useless. So is that where the more advanced techniques come in?
Precisely. This is where you see things like statistical models, sophisticated anomaly detection, predictive analytics really making a difference. The material puts a lot of emphasis on machine learning ML in this space.
Okay, ML. How does that work here?
Well, ML models are powerful because they can identify really subtle behavioral shifts that a simple rule would just completely miss. They can link seemingly unrelated data points across different transactions, maybe different accounts to spot connections, perhaps identifying a whole fraud network. And critically, they have the ability to learn and evolve as the fraudsters change their methods.
So they adapt to the new tricks. That feels much more dynamic, much more promising.
And the source mentions some specific common techniques they use, often layered together.
Yes, absolutely. Several key ones are mentioned. Device fingerprinting is one.
Device fingerprinting.
Yeah, it looks beyond just your login details. It checks if the actual device you're using, your phone, your computer, has been seen before, or if it has characteristics that look suspicious. Then there are IP geolocation checks, identifying where the activity is coming from, flagging known high-risk regions.
Makes sense.
Velocity rules are also really essential. They catch those rapid bursts of activity, like someone trying dozens of transactions or login attempts in just a few minutes, trying to overwhelm basic checks.
Right, like a brute force thing.
Kinda, yeah. And then there's social network analysis. Now, this isn't your Facebook feed.
Okay, good.
No, this is analyzing connections within the transaction or account data itself, trying to uncover hidden fraud rings or networks of money mules. And the key is often combining these methods. Layering them provides a much, much stronger defense than any single one alone.
It really sounds like building this complex adaptive net to catch things. But even with all that tech, the material makes it clear this isn't, easy. There are big challenges. What's one of the biggest hurdles they face?
Yeah, it's definitely not simple. One of the most persistent and frankly difficult challenges highlighted is that constant balancing act between detection accuracy and the customer experience.
The classic friction problem.
Exactly. It's a real tightrope walk. If your detection systems are too aggressive, too sensitive, they'll flag legitimate transactions. That annoys customers, leads to frustration, maybe even lost business. Those are the dreaded false positives we mentioned. But if the systems are too lenient, too relaxed, well, then the fraud just slips right through, and that leads to significant financial losses, reputational damage, all of that.
That's the security versus convenience dilemma just playing out constantly. What other big challenges are there?
Well, the sheer volume and speed of digital transactions is another huge one. You've got instant payments, mobile apps everywhere, even decentralized platforms popping up. Fraud can happen and spread almost instantaneously now, which means detection needs to be happening in real time, or at least near real time. And that's a massive technical lift. And then there's the adversary themselves. They're getting smarter, more sophisticated. The material points out that fraudsters are now using AI too.
Oh, great. AI versus AI.
In some ways, yes. They're creating synthetic identities, completely fabricated people using a mix of real and fake data that can sometimes fool basic checks. They're generating deepfake documents. These are new kinds of threats that, frankly, traditional detection models just weren't designed for and often struggle to pick up. It really is becoming a bit of an AI arms race.
Wow, the criminals using the same advanced tools. That
Yeah.
really ramps up the difficulty. Okay, let's zoom out a bit then. How does fraud detection fit into the sort of bigger picture, the whole ecosystem of combating financial crime?
Yeah, that's a really important point the FinCrime intelligence material makes. Fraud isn't just this standalone crime happening in isolation. Very often, it's actually a precursor to other larger financial crimes.
A precursor,
Yeah.
like step one.
Exactly. It can be the initial method used to get the funds or maybe steal the identities needed before moving into things like money laundering or terrorist financing or even insider abuse within a company.
So catching that initial fraud early could actually disrupt these bigger criminal operations down the line.
Precisely. And that's why these fraud detection systems often work very closely with and overlap significantly with anti-money laundering or AML systems, also with general transaction monitoring tools and even sanctions screening systems.
They're all looking at financial activity.
Right. They're all analyzing financial activity, maybe just with slightly different goals or focuses, but the data and the insights are hugely valuable across all those functions. And for compliance teams, strong fraud detection is, well, absolutely essential. The material notes how it directly supports the regulatory obligations. It provides the triggers needed for filing suspicious activity reports or SARs. It gives crucial information for investigations. And ultimately, it helps reduce the financial institution's overall risk exposure. It's also really critical that fraud detection is tightly integrated with Know Your Customer KYC and Customer Due Diligence CDD processes, especially right at the beginning, during account opening and onboarding.
Catching them at the door, basically.
Much more effective. Catching potential fraud or maybe a synthetic identity right at the start is far easier than trying to untangle it all later on.
Yeah, that integration makes total sense. Build a defense from day one. You mentioned technology is key to these advanced methods. What are the main tools and technologies really powering modern fraud detection right now?
Well, today's fraud detection landscape is heavily reliant on automation and the ability to analyze just massive amounts of data in real time. The material lists several common technologies you see being used.
Okay, give us a sense of what's in the toolkit.
So you see AI-driven fraud platforms. Those are the adaptive learning systems we talked about, the ones that evolve. Behavioral biometrics is becoming more common too.
Behavioral biometrics, how you use your device.
Exactly. Looking at how a user interacts, typing speed, mouse movements, swipe patterns on a phone, even how they hold the device to spot deviations from their normal patterns, it's quite subtle.
Interesting.
Then you have case management systems. These are vital back-end tools for the human analysts, helping them manage, track, and investigate all the alerts the detection engines spit out. APIs and external data feeds are important too. They let institutions pull in real-time data from third-party sources like shared fraud databases for, richer context and analysis. And graph analytics is increasingly used.
Graph analytics, like network maps.
Sort of, yeah. For mapping and understanding really complex relationships between transactions or accounts that might seem unrelated, but actually indicate a hidden fraud network. What's interesting, as the material notes, is that these tools often aren't standalone anymore. They're increasingly delivered as part of bigger, comprehensive enterprise fraud management solutions.
Bringing it all together.
Right, allowing for a more coordinated, more effective response across different types of fraud and different channels online, mobile, call center, etc.
So, a unified fight.
Yeah.
But even with all this powerful tech and automation, the material still really emphasizes that human expertise isn't going away, is it?
No, absolutely not. While automation handles the sheer scale and speed, human oversight and analysis remain, well, critical components. The material highlights the roles of human analysts. They're essential for validating the complex alerts the systems generate, the ones that aren't clear-cut. They investigate those really tricky edge cases that algorithms just can't definitively figure out. And crucially, they provide the feedback loop needed to refine and improve the detection models based on what actually happened in the real world. Then there's also that essential layer of governance. You need strong frameworks in place to make sure the rules and algorithms are regularly updated, that the detection thresholds are set appropriately based on the organization's tolerance for their risk appetite,
Right.
and that the controls align with the overall business strategy. And yes, as the material touches on, this oversight also involves carefully considering the ethical side of things.
Privacy concern.
Exactly. The ethical implications and privacy concerns related to using huge amounts of personal and behavioral data for detection. It's a very important consideration.
That's a really crucial balance to strike. And finally, the material makes it very clear. This isn't a static problem. You don't just solve fraud detection once and you're done. It needs constant effort.
That's definitely one of the biggest takeaways. Fraud detection is inherently dynamic. It has to evolve continuously, simply because the fraudsters are always adapting their tactics. So this means a constant process of tuning the models, rigorous testing against new fraud scenarios, and incorporating that feedback from investigations we mentioned.
Always learning, always adjusting.
Always. Institutions have to constantly review their performance metrics. What are our actual detection rates? How many false positives are we generating? How quickly are we responding to alerts? These metrics are vital for understanding how effective the current systems really are and where they need to improve. And finally, collaboration is just absolutely critical here.
Between institutions.
Yes. Institutions need to share information carefully, of course, participate in industry forums, access intelligence on emerging fraud typologies that others are seeing. Staying ahead in this race really requires a collective effort against, a common adversary.
Okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground. We've gone from understanding what fraud detection is and how it fundamentally works, explored the different techniques, from those traditional rules right up to cutting-edge AI, tackled the significant challenges, like that tough balance between security and customer experience, and facing off against AI-powered adversaries, seen its vital role in the bigger fight against financial crime, looked at the key technologies driving it, acknowledged that irreplaceable human element and the importance of governance, and finally stressed that this is just a non-stop evolving process. What seems abundantly clear from the FinCrime intelligence material is that fraud detection is this incredibly complex, constantly adapting, and, well, absolutely critical layer of defense. It's operating in the background, of our increasingly digital financial lives. It's literally that invisible shield protecting countless transactions every single second.
Yeah, it's the system you rely on, often without even realizing it, every single time you interact with a financial service digitally.
And perhaps the core kind of provocative thought to leave you with, drawn directly from the insights in this material, is really about that continuous high-stakes race we've talked about. This ongoing battle between the sophisticated adaptive detection technology on one side and the equally innovative and evolving tactics of fraudsters on the other. And how, inextricably linked to that race is the ongoing challenge for financial institutions. How do you balance providing truly effective security that stops the criminals with delivering that seamless, friction-free customer experience that, let's be honest, we all expect now? It's a really delicate, really vital balance. And it's one that impacts the security and the convenience of your financial life every single day.